Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Llama Life. Today we have Mark Lucey with us with Tree Line Pursuits, Todd Volskin behind the camera, and we're going to be talking about a few different topics, but mainly renting llamas for hunting purposes and hunting strategies with llamas. And Mark and I have been hunting with llamas. Mark's in his fourth season, I think. Coming up his fourth season. And so llamas have been a big topic, and different strategies of hunting have been big topics, and it's very readily available to people now. And so we thought we would take some time and to kind of break down different aspects of renting llamas for hunting and scouting and different strategies of using llamas. And over the years, I've done probably every strategy that you can come up with in creative way of using llamas for backcountry use, or so I thought. And Mark has actually come up with a couple unique strategies that have really helped him get an advantage against the other public land hunters out there. And I think that the reason why this is important and why we appreciate you tuning in today is because everyone out there now has kind of the same information available to them in some way or another. If there's two guys, different parts of the world or the United States, working hard to hunt a specific unit, they're typically going to make phone calls to biologists, in the fishing game. They're going to reach out to friends and family that may or not have hunted that area and try to get any firsthand knowledge they have. And then second, they're going to start with the good old e-scouting. They're going to go to whatever platform, whether it's Go Hunt, Muley Crazy, or whatever they can to find out information about that unit. They're going to whip out their Google Earth, Onyx Maps, Gaia, etc. And Mark actually has some really good videos. He's doing a series about digital scouting and e-scouting. And so I'd highly recommend checking out Tree Line Pursuits on YouTube. Go to their website as well and look at some of the e-scouting videos that Mark's putting out. And then you got the third option, and the third thing you do is put boots on the ground. And so when people do all three of these things, what is their competitive advantage? And a lot of people are doing those same steps. And so what I used to think was kind of like a loophole, or someone wasn't looking at the data that I was looking at, or harvest statistics, or different things, I was like, man, nowadays, like, everyone is doing all these steps. And I'm getting to my hunting spot, or a spot that I chose, and there's people there already, and they're hunting it. Like, man, I've got to change my setup, change my strategy. And so over the years, I found ways to be creative, as Mark has, and how to do that. And llamas have been a huge arsenal that we've used, and now our businesses have grown to the opportunity where we can actually rent llamas out. And we feel like that's a huge strategy for people, be able to rent llamas for backpack hunting and backcountry scouting and all the uses above. So we're going to dive into it today about how you can get into renting llamas, using that as a component of your scouting and hunting, and then some hunt strategies that Mark and I have used. So Mark, this is second year renting llamas to people, to the public. What are people's concerns, and like how do you get them from an inquiry coming through the website or phone call to actually getting them on the trail and renting llamas?
Well, the first thing is when I first put this out there, my first couple of inquiries I actually ignored because I had this emotional bond with my llamas, and I could not bear the thought of them heading out into the backcountry with someone else. And I don't know, I had this fear about it. And you were kind of pushing me along to this rental thing, and they were our babies. And so I remember my first rental that I had was a couple that the wife was pregnant, but they loved going into the Bob Marshall, and they were going to do an 80-mile point-to-point.
Oh my gosh!
And they usually do it. They usually do it with backpacks. But with her condition, they wanted to take, not carry the weight. So they rented a couple llamas. So anyway, we loaded them up and they headed out, and I was worried the whole week. And but they were great. Llamas did amazing. They're renting again this year.
Oh, wow.
They loved it. But that was just a side story. But the renting part of it for me is people will. I think one of the things that we want to get across in this video is that the renting of llamas is actually an option. I think a lot of big game hunters, like for example, I think this is roughly my 29th or 30th year hunting elk in the western states. Well, I've only lived in Montana for 3. So I was traveling from Missouri, from east to west for all those years.
Like a lot of people.
Yeah, and sometimes a couple of trips a year.
That's a lot of
more than I
travel.
deserved. And but I never even thought of that as a possibility. And there wasn't a lot of options back then. I think you were even renting llamas then, but I never really came across the information. Never really, and even if I did, I totally discounted because I said I've never been around llamas, I've never handled llamas, so it just never materialized in my brain that it would be an option for us to do. And having the right vehicles to take llamas, we'll talk about that a little too, is just there's a lot of factors I think that I had preconceived ideas in my head based on being around horses a little and other types of animals that probably kept me from even looking at llamas. So I think one of my goals with coming here and meeting with you is, from my rookie perspective, so to speak, and your experienced perspective, the process of renting llamas and kind of taking some of the mystery out of it. So first of all, people just contact us real simply. Just go to the websites, either Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas or Tree Line Pursuits or Access Wild. And we pretty much, with the three of us, we pretty much have availability in the entire state of Montana and Idaho with that. And even other states, depending on how far you want to, transport.
Wyoming, Utah, definitely.
But we just basically get a general inquiry. It's a very personal experience to rent the llamas. We just get on the phone with you. We talk through all the ideas, what your goals are, your objectives are.
Logistics. Time frames, concerns.
How many guys are going, kind of then start looking at
gals.
Or gals, that's right. Or kids, or youth hunts. That's another thing, youth hunts. Youth sometimes. Now I'm seeing more and more 10, 12-year-olds hunting.
Which is great.
But they're not able to carry the backpacks that they are necessary to get into the backcountry.
Or when you get out.
Or even more importantly, when you got elk, getting the elk out becomes a little more arduous for the youngsters. And not only that, I want my child, when my son goes the first time, I want it to be a good experience. So it's not like, whoa, that was way more than I signed up for. That was a little bit of a off track there, but you get the point.
Yeah.
So once that inquiry is made with me, we kind of have a personal conversation about it, and then we talk details and pricing and logistics of transportation, meeting them somewhere or them coming picking up, and then we make arrangements for them to do the clinic. We require, and you require, we all require that our renters take a clinic the first time they rent.
Yep.
And so the clinic pretty much will teach you everything you need to know to handle the llamas in the backcountry. It's just almost, I hate to simplify it, but that's about as simple as it is.
Yeah, you did a great job. And the clinic, once people, if you took a picture of people before they take the clinic, like they show up to the ranch or whatever, take a picture of them before and then take a picture of them after, you can visually see the difference of, high stress, new challenge, not sure what to expect, to, oh wow, I have total confidence that we can do this. And that's the one thing that always amazes me, is how you can take people that don't own livestock, that have probably never worked with llamas or even seen one, to total confidence going in the backcountry.
Loading them up, unloading them,
up,
the whole
in and out of trailer, staking them out at camp, the whole deal.
And in all my cases of my rentals so far, and I haven't that many so far, but all the ones that I've had have been that experience. They come in, they're a little apprehensive. They got a lot of questions right off the bat. I'm like, why don't you just save your questions until the end, and I'll answer them all. But let's just kind of, I think you'll find, and I think people almost immediately are like, this is way easier than I thought. And once they get their hands on the llamas and they hook them up and they're leading them around, in most cases, I've said this a lot in my clinics, they're easier to handle than dogs. They don't pull on the lead, they follow behind.
They follow behind you.
They don't even pull back usually. They tell you when they need something. I mean, it's almost a common sense approach. If you've got any reasonable common sense, you're not going to have any problems at all handling llamas.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If if you're scared of it, or you're apprehensive of it, or you're nervous of it, I think those clinics pretty much take that away.
Yeah, and people, it's funny, like people call you and then they're like, okay, we're thinking about this. This might be something we might want to do. It's like, okay, just call us back when you're sure. They call you back and they have so many questions the second time because they told their friends and their family, hey, I'm thinking about renting llamas. And then their family just went with all these questions, and now they're like really apprehensive about it.
Yeah.
And they show up and you go through the steps. And I think the biggest part of breaking down the barriers that people have coming into the llama rental clinic is now they've decided, okay, we're going to do this. Here's the logistics. Here's how we're going to get our llamas from X place, spot A to spot Z, and make this happen. And now they're taking the clinic, and it's having good llamas. So llamas that are well bred, well trained, and well conditioned. And those three pieces are huge. And you're not sending people with llamas that you recently purchased, at the petting zoo or at Craigslist for $100 or something, or free.
Well,
right?
I was going to mention that too. You got to be careful if you're out there and you're evaluating llamas as a possibility of renting, and you're kind of looking at stories and blogs. And people, it's funny. People tend to write about the train wrecks more than they write about the success stories.
Yeah, it's human nature.
So there's a few stories out there that I've found searching of guys like, oh man, llamas with the worst experience ever. Just be careful how you evaluate that, because I can't speak for everyone, but I would go on the record and say that a far majority of those cases, if not all of those cases, are cases that did not meet the criteria you just outlined, that they're good genetic quality pack llamas, that they have been conditioned, they've got the proper saddles and the proper gear and the panniers, and that they went through a clinic to get them properly trained to handle them in the field. I think you line those things up, and it's not a guaranteed recipe for success. Nothing is, but it's about as close to a guarantee as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
With using any kind of animals, including dogs to pack,
right.
In the backcountry.
Yeah, I think, and it's hard for people to say, like our viewers here. It's like, you guys don't know potentially what a well-bred animal is or their pedigree, So you got to trust in us to do that. But what you can do is to try to figure that out is, read testimonials of, the company, and ask the company where you're potentially going to rent llamas. Can we speak to some of your old guests or renters that are open to it?
Exactly.
Ask for referrals, and look at their website, look at their Facebook page, look for pictures. And if they have a good following and people are engaging and people have good interaction, it's probably you can kind of rule out that factor of, are these good quality llamas,
Well, in both of our cases, and I'll just go ahead and speak for you, these llamas that we rent, I told you the story about my first rental. These are my personal llamas.
Yeah.
I mean, these are my hunting llamas.
Your buddies.
These are not
family members.
Some half-cooked, half-baked llamas I keep back in the back 40s. Then I bring them out for rentals. These are my babies. These are my A-team. I take the same llamas on all my trips that I rent. So what I like about that for me personally is it gives me additional chances to socialize my llamas with new people.
Yep.
And it gives me some conditioning. And it gives me conditioning for my llamas. I love renting my llamas in the summertime to people taking fishing trips and pack trips, and like this Bob Marshall, cross the Bob Marshall trips. I love those trips because it gets the llamas year-round exposure.
They love it too, right?
They'd rather do that than stand around the pen.
They don't want to stand in the pen.
Llamas are really unique in that the fact that they seem to be the happiest when they're on the trail walking along with 80 pounds on their back. And that's maybe not be the case for us as humans, but that seems to be their favorite time. And so anyway, I think that year-round exposure for the rental operations, that fitness level that comes with that. And just being used to being handled. Different kinds of animals react differently, different pack animals, but in order to be a good pack animal of any kind, they've got to be social, they've got to be used to being handled.
Yep. By lots of different people.
Exactly. You can't just grab once a year and that's that's one thing I also want to say. Like an example of me coming from the East. I'll just add this. The average hunter coming from the East, like me, maybe he's got 7 to 10 days to hunt. Well, they're probably not going to own llamas in Missouri
and bring them out
here for 10 days of hunting and then do very little with them the rest of the year.
Right.
Could it be done? After seeing llamas and being around, I'm convinced it could be done now with llamas. You could do that for sure. But I think that the cost of the renting is low enough versus the care, versus the conditioning, versus being able to be a little more capable in the field. I think that rental option is a great possibility for Eastern hunters, particularly that are not using them in the backcountry on an ongoing basis.
Well, yeah, we get a lot of requests of people wanting to buy llamas, and they want to buy basically a set of packers.
That's right.
You know, male or female. They want 2 or 3, for their own personal use. And a lot of times, when you ask the people that want to buy llamas, their first ones, they've never worked with them before. And I always recommend, it's like, if you're going to buy them, just go and work with quality pack llamas. You know, there's people in Colorado, Stan Evil. There's people in Montana. You know, Mark lives there.
You didn't do that with me. You just sold me llamas and sent me on my way.
You were committed to buying.
I never even touched.
Buy before you try. That's him.
I bought mine sight ups. Never saw my llamas. Just trusted Bo, and they delivered them. I took them home. I'm like, okay, now we got to work it out. Never did a clinic.
Never did clinic.
Nothing. So I don't recommend that approach. But I love my llamas, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made as a hunter, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal experience, and so I just recommend, if people are looking at buying, is at least try renting first, and if then you still want to buy them, that's great. But also think about how much you're going to use them. You know, I feel like if someone wanted to come and buy one of our premium males for packing, or females, and I'd say, well, how many miles do you think you're going to do this year? And they're like 50 or 60. I'm like, for that amount of time, it's really not worth it for you to buy this animal, and it really doesn't do the animal justice.
That's right.
They really need to be out there working. I mean, this is what they were bred for thousands of years to do, and so like we kind of owe it to them to send them to homes where they're going to pack a lot. And so sometimes we're reluctant to sell llamas that aren't going to go out and get worked.
Yeah.
And so renting is just a great option, and highly recommend it. And people always ask me, and I'm sure they asked you, is, like, how did you send out, how can you send out your babies, like these animals that you love and train and birth and breed and work with all the time, and they're members of your family. And, I haven't sent a child out of the home yet, but I think it'd be somewhat similar, to be able to do that. And it's like, we love these animals and we train them a lot. And I think we had just kind of got past that barrier. And once we tried it and it started working, and even many, many years later, after renting llamas, it's still never easy. But seeing people's enjoyment after the end of a trip of llama rentals helps me do the next one.
Well, and the success rate. I mean, it's not like, now in my case, it's been, every single one has been overwhelmingly 100% success. Yeah. There's always I'm sure you've had a few in your 20 years, no possible that's not. But the possibility of people renting llamas and taking them out and having just an absolute success is so high compared to about any other option you can go with, in my opinion. And I think that's what makes it easier for us to let our babies head out into the backcountry, because we know that they're easy to take care of, so we know they're not going to be in trouble in that. We
trained them already.
We know how resilient they are with food and water. We know how easy they are on the trail. We know, we know that they can, I don't want to say take care of themselves, but the point is, there's the specifics of getting into and renting llamas is not that difficult, and that makes it easier to stomach. Yeah, sending them out. For me, maybe that's the way I've justified it in my head. But,
well, that's a good perspective.
My kids, I have 2 small kids, and my wife are so connected to my llamas now. They just love those things. When we sent them out, it was a sad day at the ranch, because we're used to every day we walk out there, and we rented our entire team. So every day we walked out, we had no llamas out there. It was just like all 4 of them were gone. Yeah, and so. But I wouldn't say we're used to it, but we're getting used to it.
Well, this year, guys, Mark has, with Tree Line Pursuits, again, has 6 llamas that he'll be renting out. And so a few more added to the list. And I think, we do have a lot of success in renting llamas. And it comes down to the few components we talked about before. Well-bred, well-conditioned, well-trained. And then also, when that first phone call comes in from someone looking to rent llamas, is... you can kind of right off the bat get the feel. And we kind of go through this vetting process, and not necessarily vetting as much as it is, setting the stage, setting the precedent of how the process is going to go, what you need to do. And if people kind of get through that process, those are the right people that need to be in the backcountry.
Well, and we've had cases we haven't rented to.
Yeah, we've had cases.
I had a case already. Yeah. That I just did not want to. I did not feel comfortable. The gentleman just was not going to. Did not want to follow kind of our path, and I'm not doing it. Yeah. So I'm not saying we're picky. We have some guidelines that we like to follow, but reasonable people, I'm open to that. But I'm just not going to rent, and I don't think you are, to people that we just cannot be comfortable with. So,
Right.
and I think that's a good thing for people that are renting to know that we're just not doing that. Our llamas are not going out on trips that we're not comfortable with going on, or people that we're not comfortable with. So they've been handled well. They respond well to people. A couple of things too to add to that. They're great with kids. I mentioned my 5-year-old leads her own string.
Yeah.
I've had her leading 2 or 3 llamas by herself, totally out front, setting the pace. 5 years old. And you know how kids are. They get distracted. She's grabbing flowers, slamming on the brakes, going fast, jumping stuff. And they just do great. They have no problems. I've said this before, but in some ways I think llamas are actually better around kids than they are adults, the way they accept them.
Yeah.
Second thing is with dogs. We don't talk about this a lot, but I run into a lot of dogs on the trail. And horses and dogs, like normal, it depends on if they're used. A lot of horses have been around dogs and ranches and stuff, so they're pretty good with them. But there is cases, but my llamas just do not react to dogs unless it's an aggressive dog.
All of ours are the exact same way.
But that's a great thing. So people that have dogs, even if the llama has not met the dog, as long as the dog doesn't do anything to the llamas. I mean, I had renters with dogs. The dogs are going between the llama's feet, walking right beside him, and it's not a problem.
Yeah. Once the animal turns aggressive, the dog, that changes the llama's reaction big time.
And llamas kind of have ability to take care of themselves too, and we kind of go through that in the clinics, but as far as dogs are concerned. But I wanted to put that in that. If you're renting llamas to hunt, that's kind of our point of this. But there's other reasons to rent them, and friends and family and dogs and pets and things.
Yeah.
It's not a deal breaker for sure, depending on the dog,
Right.
obviously.
I think there's a few golden rules that we teach in the clinic and that help with people learning, or just help our success, right? When we talked about vetting, we talked about setting the precedent of what people should expect while renting. But then on the clinic, we really hash out a lot of the details and a lot of the golden rules, which, for us are make sure the llama is always fed and watered properly. If you can do that 100% of the time, that's paramount to your success. And the second thing is when you put the saddle and packs on, to make sure that it's done correctly. And the third thing we like to teach people is to enjoy themselves and to remember that nothing they're doing is a race. And if they can, and the fourth one is to treat the llamas back, in general, treat the llamas like they would treat themselves. So when they're resting, the llama's resting. When they're eating lunch and have their packs off, the llamas need to eat lunch and have their packs off. And those 4 rules have really helped immensely, of people having great success. And then also stuff that you and I do on our end of, owners of the llamas is making sure that we always send out 2 llamas. And the reason why we do that is because llamas are herd animals, and they really want to be together. And for lots of reasons, we'll do that so that one, the llamas can help each other feel safe. They're still traveling the herd environment. If one llama gets loose at night, you wake up the next morning and he wants to stay close to his buddy. And so llamas just do work better and are happier at camp when they're working in teams. And so we do stuff on our end, and like sending llamas out in pairs, teaching the clinics, And now we have a manual that we've built that we actually send out to people once they've booked a llama reservation. We'll send that out to them, and so they get a look at all the stuff that we're going to teach them in the clinic, and they get to read it. So they'll read it, and then they'll come and we'll teach it. And so we're just trying to get as much information, in front of people before they actually take the llamas on the trail. And then, proper gear and equipment. The gear and equipment is very, very simple. And we've kind of refined the process over years thanks to a lot of different outfitters that we've learned from, my dad especially. Learning about some of the gear and equipment that other outfitters use for other livestock has been huge. And so we've kind of designed our system to be really, really simple. Easy to teach, easy to know how it's done correctly. And so it's been really exciting to be able to do that. And then the trucks and trailer and transportation. That's always the biggest thing is people want to know, how do we get now we got the llamas, they got the gear and equipment, we got the clinic, we're ready to rock and roll. How do we get llamas from your facility, Mark, to the Bob Marshall Wilderness? And we have basically two methods, or two ways of transportation. People can rent trailers from us, and the trailers are, registered and insured, and you don't have to worry about that. And they're always sent out clean. Lights and everything work 100%. And then we have stock racks that slip inside the back of a pickup truck. And we don't really like llamas to travel in bad weather in the stock racks, if you can help it, or super long distances. And I would say anything beyond 4 hours one way would be a super long distance. And so transportation is huge. In some areas where permitted, you can actually take the llamas from your ranch to a facility close by or to the trailhead, depending on if you're permitted or not. And we're permitted to do that in some areas, not in others. But in Idaho, you can usually transport your llamas from one ranch to another ranch, closer to where you want to go.
Or to private property.
Or to private property.
Basically a private property setting.
And then people, coming down can meet you at that that area, that mutual area, and then take the llamas from there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's always people will kind of go down the path. Okay, we love the idea of renting llamas. We want to do it. We're okay with taking the clinic. And sometimes people stop at that transportation. How do I get the llamas here? And the only reason is it's not out of cost or anything. It's out of time and ability to get the llamas to that point.
Well, I think another thing to add to that is like the type of trucks or vehicles that can pull them. Because remember, your average llama is weighing 350 to 400 pounds.
Yep.
So very significantly less than horses, for example.
Sure.
And so the weight of the trailer and the llamas, let's say you're renting 2 llamas in a 2-horse trailer, you can pull that with, for example, like Toyota Tundras, even Tacomas, if it's not a crazy, maybe a steepness. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably anyway they pull it. It depends on the trailer, but my point is you don't need a 2,500 truck or a 3,500 like you might need to pull a big gooseneck type trailers. I don't think you rent those type of trailers anyway. They're all bumper hitch type 2.5, 2-inch or 2 3/8 or whatever, 2 5/8 balls. So I get that question. The last few rentals I've had have been, asking about that because they're envisioning a horse trailer with horses in it and the weight, 2,000-pound horses, and that's just not the case with the llamas.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's probably good to note is when we rent out llamas, we rent out, a jack, tire iron, all the light adapters, and when you come, we hook it up, and even the hitch. We have adjustable hitches because we want everything to be perfect, and so we send you out into the field, and set up perfectly. And the llamas, we ask, typically the most llamas that we rent just seems to be the norm. It's either 2, 3, or 4 llamas. And so I say, okay, with our trailers, they're usually 12 foot long, 6 or 6 foot 8 inches wide. And, the towing capacity of the trailers with the llamas in there, I always want people to be able to pull 4,000 pounds. And so their vehicle should be able to pull 4,000 pounds and also have the braking power of 4,000 pounds. And a lot of times people show up and don't have brake controllers in their vehicles. So that's one thing I always try to remind people of. If you don't have it, it's pretty inexpensive. Get a brake controller, and that way, your vehicle, if it's, only can tow 4,000, that it still has the braking power to slow down a trailer that weighs 4,000 pounds. So that's about what our trailers weigh. It's, with all the 400 pounds of gear, the trailer and 4 llamas is about 4,000 pounds.
Okay. And I've had people rent, and I'm sure that without trailer brakes, but I really, you got to keep in mind where you're taking these llamas. Usually, if you're taking them on a hunting situation, you're into some elevation, you're into ups and downs, you're into some. The brakes are
weather, maybe you never know.
Exactly, and the weather's. The brakes are important.
Yeah.
Is it a deal breaker? No. With the right vehicles, no. With the but in most cases, you would want it personally.
Yeah. So that's kind of gear and equipment, and that's kind of the process of getting into llama rentals. And what I'd like to see is when we send someone out and they come back and have a wonderful trip, 80% of the time they want to do something the next year. And so that's really awesome is because when they come back, they don't have to take the clinic again. We just kind of do a short, course of, here, crash course. Remember this, remember this. Oh yeah, remember this. Okay, good. Go have a good time.
I'm sure you do. I send my repeats is with the same checklist that I did the year before, so they have the checklist with them.
That's awesome.
I have a checklist that goes through everything. As we do the clinic, we're checking it off, and then they put their initials at the bottom, and then I send it with them so they can kind of review it while they're driving, or if they have to go back to it, they've got it. Because it's not a lot of information, but you want to make sure you do it right.
Yeah.
And because they're animals, they want to be and need to be taken care of, just like you would your own dog or anything else that you care about. And and so anyway, that's kind of the approach I take on that as well. I'm hoping that now I'm going to start getting more repeats now. So
yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
When you get started.
That's right.
I'm guessing right now people that are watching maybe curious about cost. And so stock racks, we rent those out for $25 a day. So if you're out for 5 days, $125. And then, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And then if you're renting a trailer, and you can also bring your own trailer. You don't have to rent one from us. If you're bringing a trailer, $65 a day. And basically that just covers our insurance costs and the wear and tear. So we're basically renting out the trucks, the trailers, and the stock wrecks basically at our cost. And then llamas, if you rent llamas for 7 days or longer, it's $70 a day, and anything shorter is $80 a day per llama. And included with that, we take care of everything. As long as you have your own personal camping gear and equipment, which you can actually rent from us now. If you go to our website, wildernessridgetrailllamas.com, and just click on llama and gear rentals, you can see all the different gear that you can rent from us. Canvas tents, Seek Outside tents, different stove systems, wood stoves, cooking stoves, bear hang equipment, all that stuff. But basically, $70 a day per llama is kind of our rental cost. And you bring your own gear and equipment, and then we take care of everything. We provide first aid kits for the llamas, the halters, their lead ropes, the saddles, the blankets. We provide the stakes, the stakeout leads. We provide brushes and scales. We provide neck bands, orange neck bands that have reflective tape on them, and feed supplement, And we also have 2.5 gallon Reliance water containers that if you're dry camping night one or going to be at the trailhead and there's no water at the trailhead, so we always send you with extra water, extra feed for both trailhead and packing in if you need to. So all that's covered. In the late months in November, hopefully we're trying to rent more llamas in Montana, and then late October, November season this year. And when there's a lot of snow, your llamas need to have feed because they just don't have access to the grass, and a lot of the sugars in the grasses is gone. So the nutrients just isn't there for animals that are working, out there losing and burn a lot of calories. And so we'll provide all the feed, whether it's 1 pound per llama per day that we send you in the middle of summer, or if it's late season and we send you with 3 pounds per day. It doesn't matter, and the price stays the same.
Yeah.
So our goal is always to take care of our llamas, and we don't nickel and dime anyone that's looking to rent llamas.
We kind of waxed over that, but I get asked that a lot too, because people that have pack animal experience, they're thinking that they're renting horses. If they're going to try to rent horses, they got to keep in mind, well, the horse, they got to carry this much feed and whatever. Typically what I send out during hunting season, if it's not snow, a lot of snow, is 1 pound to 2 pounds per day per llama. So it's really not a lot more added weight onto the operation of your trip.
Whole thing, yep.
Versus dedicating an entire pack animal to carrying feed, which I've seen a lot with pack animals, with other pack animals. Like, for example, even people that pack with dogs. That's the thing I've read about, is that they have to carry so much food for themselves because they can't forage, obviously, in the wild.
Right.
So it really limits the ability to pack even with canines.
Right.
And so that's another real benefit of llamas is that they'll forage most of their food, and we're just supplementing their nutrition in the field at a minimum. Most of the time, it's about 1 pound a day.
About 1 pound a day.
Unless we're in extreme conditions.
Yeah, spring, summer, early fall, it's usually about 1 pound a day. And a lot of people don't even do that, but we feel the necessity to keep our llamas working year in and year out. They need the extra mineral, they need the vitamins, and they need the protein and the fat and the fiber. So that extra supplement designed for llamas is huge. So yeah, a big component of it. And people always ask, like, always want to know about the care in the field. That's probably one of the biggest questions when people ask, so can I actually leave the llamas in camp? And the answer is yes, but there's always a but, right? What kind of country are you in? Are you in grizzly country? What kind of camp do you have? In camps that are in nothing but sagebrush, the llamas are going to get hung up, so when they're trying to forage, they get all tangled up. And so in that situation, you would not want to leave them. You probably want to take them hunting with you. Which kind of brings us into our hunting strategy. But if your llamas have a place they need basically, a radius of 18 feet, so that they can eat and forage wherever they want without getting hung up. And so that's really important. And always having good food and good water, good clean water. And we try to give our llamas water in the morning and in the night, whether they drink in the morning or not. And if they drink at night, then the next morning we'll still give them that option. And it really helps their ability to pack and to do it day in and day out. What kind of questions do you get about keeping llamas, at camp, and the care?
Well, we've covered quite a few of them. I think one of the ones I do get is the water. How much water do they need? How much, do I have to camp by water? Do I have to, so to give you some examples of handling, I was on a trip, an 8-day trip, late season. It was really cold, and we weren't using the llamas every day, so they were really not putting forth a lot of effort. So keep that in mind. But we had a 5-gallon bucket or a 4-gallon bucket of water, and we just took it around to them every morning and gave them a few minutes, kind of backed off, gave them a few minutes to see if they wanted to drink or not. And they barely drank 4 gallons in 8 days, 4 llamas.
Yeah.
And that's probably the lowest amount I've seen them drink. But they'll drink when they want to drink. And like you said, the key is giving them the opportunity. Because you can't guess. I mean, I've given up trying to guess when they need water. I've had llamas that didn't drink for 4 days. And then I have another.
Nervous on when it happens.
Yeah, and I'm like, something wrong with them. And then I have a llama drinks every day. So, they'll drink when they want to. It's giving them the opportunity.
Giving them the opportunity.
But the key for me is like, we also can provide these 4-gallon buckets that go in the panniers. It's a pretty cool system. Each pannier can hold 2 4-gallon buckets, and they have square buckets, and they have lids.
Total water protection if you want.
Kinda, they leak a little sometimes. But the point is, we pack our llamas to the water source while we're at camp. We did this on a Colorado hunt. We hunted a place that a lot of horse guys can't hunt because there's no water on this mesa at all. It was a 600-foot to 700-foot drop to the water.
Descent down to get water from
So
camp.
we were there for like 10 days. We only dropped once for water because
How many llamas did you have?
We had way too many. It was me and another guy that has llamas.
So you
My
guys
buddy
were
Ryan. We had 9 llamas.
Llama rich?
2 guys, 9 llamas.
Was it fun though?
It was nice. It's really nice to have that. We took in full-on cots. I mean, we had everything. Plenty of beer, beverages. We had it all.
Steak?
We ate our dehydrated meals.
Of course you guys did.
Yeah, I love my dehydrated meals. So anyway, we dropped down one day with 2 llamas and brought back 8 buckets of water, and we dumped out.
Okay.
When we left, we dumped out at least half of that.
No way.
Yeah, they only went through probably 4 buckets of water in 10 days. And I wouldn't say it was hot, but it was but again, we weren't using the llamas every day. They were at camp, and we were leaving camp and hunting. Our strategy on that hunt didn't require us to take the llamas with us.
Every day.
We were hunting really close to camp. So that, we're going to get into some hunting strategies, but keep in mind with llamas, since you have that ability, you're able to camp, and they're so quiet. They make almost no noise, virtually none. Maybe a slight hum every now and then. So it allows you to camp very close to your prey. I mean, we literally were glassing from our tent.
Really?
Yep.
On that hunt?
Yeah, we literally could set and glass from our camp. And we're seeing elk every day. Because those llamas, and the llamas don't seem to spook these animals either. They're not afraid of them. I've had cases where they actually have attracted elk, have come to check them out. I wouldn't say they walked into their area, but they definitely were on the perimeter looking at them. I almost killed a nice bull one time because he was fixated on them, and I got my gun out, loaded, out of everything, and because he was staring at the llamas.
Really?
I didn't end up getting him, but I almost did.
That's pretty cool.
But there's no chance of that. There would have been no chance of that if I wouldn't have had the llamas. And that was when they were wearing their bright orange panniers even. So back to my point, they're so quiet, and they don't move around a whole lot during the day. They usually will just browse around and just lay down, hang out, enjoy the sun. They don't bay. They don't make noise when you leave camp. They don't miss you. They're not like they're barking or whatever goats do when you leave. I mean, all that stuff.
Barking goats, I like it.
They just don't do it. And so it allows us to get very close, which is, and then I gave you the example of the water. So you put those two things together and start thinking about that as a strategy. That opens up a lot of doors.
Opens up
a lot of doors that you go into areas that are outfitter rich. You know, one of the problems, we'll get into strategy, but when you start hunting remote, really at that point, when I say remote, let's say call it 4 miles plus, you're really only dealing with the hardy backpackers and horse people. Well, horse people love the trails. And so
love the trails.
The horses just do better on trails. It's just a fact. And now that doesn't mean they don't hunt off the trails, but llamas are almost, I'm not saying they prefer it. I don't even think they care if it's a trail or off trail. My llamas do almost as good just crossing the wide open sagebrush or through the dark timber as they do hiking down a trail. Maybe it's a little slower, you're picking your way. But that also opens up so many possibilities with handling llamas in the backcountry. But so anyway, the flexibility of the llamas and the water intake, even though they need water, they don't need the quantity of water that some other pack animals might need. So it allows you to be real flexible on that.
Yeah, it really does.
Especially, I haven't used mine yet, but I've been to Arizona I'm kind of excited about taking mine to hunt some really remote areas of Arizona and New Mexico.
Yeah.
And if I ever draw a friggin' tag. But I'm excited about that because it's going to open up a lot of possibilities for me there.
I've had guys talk about places in Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado where they're 7 miles from being able to get water, and no one goes in there, and these tags are really accessible to get because of that one reason.
Yeah.
And one of the best things I thought when I first got into llamas, and I still love to use, is being able to scout with my llamas. And by scouting, I'm typically going into a new area. Sometimes I'm going to an old area to look for,
just to recheck it out.
Recheck it out, look for some nice animals.
Yeah.
And so I would go into a brand new area with my llamas, and I think that I've got water pinpointed. I think that I know where the creek drainages are. I think I know where a good campsite is, but I just don't know. And so I've got plan A of water, plan B of water, plan C of water, and I've got camp spot A, B, and C, and I've got vantage point A, B, and C. So I've got all this stuff that I'm going to try to just orient myself and backup plans. But what I always do, if I'm going into a new area and I'm by myself, I have 2 llamas. One llama will have gear and equipment and food, llama supplies. The other one will just have strictly water. And we can go in, and for 3 to 4 days, the 3 of us, my 2 llamas and myself, we can go anywhere and do anything and not need to check in for water.
Well,
So
you just can camp where you're at.
I'm just camp where
If you want. If you end up by the water, save your
Great.
water. If you don't, you got it.
You got it.
I love that strategy. I've used that a lot myself. I'm a big solo guy. I do a lot of hunting solo, and I do a lot of my scouting solo. But even if it's a couple guys, you take a couple, even with a couple llamas, if you're willing to carry a little weight on your back,
30
pounds, you can do the same scenario we just talked about and have a great, and the benefits of scouting. I think one of the reasons we want to do this video is because we talk a lot about renting llamas for hunting and all that, but I think we really haven't scratched the surface of using llamas to kind of find and identify your, most guys, if they're like me or even you, they spend almost as much time looking for their hunting spots as they do hunting. If not more. I probably spend more, to be honest. Now, if you're coming from the east, like we were talking about before, maybe you don't have that luxury. And that's where that e-scouting and really advancing your techniques and your e-scouting really pay off. But if you do have the ability to put boots on the ground, it's pretty difficult to load up your backpack, 60 pounds, for 3 or 4 days of gear, hike around with weight on your back. Because one of the things you're not going to do while scouting is base camp usually. Right. You're going to stay on the move to keep looking at stuff.
You don't have the time not to do anything else.
So you're moving your camp all around every day, and it's hard to cover. Even if you're in the best shape in the world, it's hard to cover a lot of territory carrying all your camp. And this year I went on a scouting trip. The first one I went on this year was without my llamas.
Really?
And I hated it. And the only reason we did, because we've never been there before, and this trailhead was way up the mountain.
Bad place.
And I was worried. I studied it on Google Earth, but I was worried I would not be able to get the trailer turned around and up there.
Yeah, I've been there.
When we got there, it was beautiful, perfect place to turn around. I was like, but I carried that 50-pound pack for 3 days, and I was just mad the whole time. And we ran into grizzlies on that particular scouting trip.
Wow.
And so at night, we didn't have the llamas out there as our alarm call. We'll talk about that maybe in a little bit, but we didn't have my llamas out there for the alarm call, so we were a little stressed about that because they were right there. So I've done it both ways. But, the cost of renting llamas is, if you think about how important hunting season is to a lot of guys that do this.
Right.
And the gear you're buying, I mean, the clothing you're buying, the guns and weapons that you're buying.
The time, right?
You're taking time off work. You've got so much limited time. You got to think hard about the cost, because if you take llama scouting on a scouting trip, I almost be willing to bet you could cover twice the country you could do with a backpack, because you're hiking along in your tennis shoes, virtually carrying nothing.
Right.
And you can cover a lot of country.
And think about the aspect of, if you've never been there before and you don't know where the water is, but you have an idea, you still have to go and get the water, that process. What if you want to camp up high, so you're at a vantage point trying to glass the best of the best country?
You're talking about personal water.
Personal water.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
One guy backpacking, you have to still go get the water, and the time spent to get the water takes away from what it is you want to do, whether that's hunting or scouting. And so I've always told people, it's like, llamas literally are the most ultimate tool to allow you to be the best hunter. And one of the reasons why is because you can spend the most time hunting.
I'd almost go further and say, I use my llama personally. Now, I would always take them on my hunting trips, let's just be honest. But if I had to pick, I'd rather take llama scouting than hunting.
Yeah,
because the hard part of hunting is finding the animals. You got to be in a place that has what
animals.
And so you need to identify that. You got to get back there. Can you backpack in there and backpack out and carry out your meat and all that?
Yes.
Of course you can. But if you can expand your circumference of your scouting trip, you've only got a few days to scout, or you got this or you got that, and you want to put some boots on the ground, then if you had to pick, I'd almost say, if I had to pick, I'd rather use them for a scouting trip than the actual hunt.
Yeah.
If I had that ability. Now, if you're coming from the east, I wouldn't even fret about it.
Yeah.
But if you have the opportunity to scout and you have the time to scout and the freedom to scout, why not cover more and see more, or even hit a couple places in the time you have off instead of one? Move them around. They're so easy to load, unload. We've moved ours in a day. We load them up, drive down the road, unload them, we're in again. I mean, it's just that simple.
One guy, a truck, a stock rack in the back, and 2 llamas is like an ultimate scouting machine.
Yeah.
2 nights, 3 nights, you can cover serious ground. And that's a huge thing. You can go to one trailhead or one area, check it out. That's not what I thought. Okay, and bounce out to the next one.
It's almost, obviously there's a little more work involved, but it's almost like just transporting yourself around in that scenario. Yeah. It's no different than you jumping in the car and driving to the next spot.
Yeah, a little more time, a little more effort, but literally not that much.
The saddles take like literally a couple of minutes to get fitted properly.
Well, yeah, think about this, right? And this just crossed my mind. If you look at the opportunity cost, if you don't have llamas, you have a bigger backpack and have all their stuff in your backpack. So you have to sift through and organize that in and out of a trailhead and a trip. But the llamas have all your stuff already. Yep. So you got a day pack on, basically, and your llama's gear. And so I would bet that the opportunity cost would be something like 15% more time and effort compared having llamas without them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. And this is, when I first got my llamas, I never even really thought about that as a scouting. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to make this video was when I first started doing this, I really wasn't even thinking about using the llamas for finding areas to hunt. and going looking at areas and just exploring, just generally exploring. You have the freedom to go almost wherever you want without the worries of the water, like you said.
Yeah.
Especially on a 1 or 2 days, you can carry that much water pretty easily.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, the scouting, I think I think you're getting the point. We're excited about that because we honestly, as hunters ourselves, I think we are just starting to maximize that as well. I mean, I don't know how long. I know you've been doing it a lot longer than me, but I'm starting to find new ways to kind of do that. What I'm starting to do now is some of you guys out there that have wives and kids that just bless you with the ability to hunt a lot of days.
Yeah.
And I want to scout, but I'm already planning on hunting 100 days. I take them on my scouting trips now, and almost all of them. I only did one trip this year scouting that I didn't take my family on. My family loves to go in the backcountry and camp. I've got a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old. They walk along, lead llamas, like I said. We got all the gear, toys, games, floaty tubes for the legs. And we pack in, and while they're hanging out at camp, I'm checking out some spots. And then I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to pack up today. We're going to move on down, move on down.
Why not? Keep
And
on
so
trekking.
I've incorporated my family into my scouting trips. So maybe that's an option for some of you guys to build some grace. And at the same time, you're getting up before everybody else is getting up, and you're getting to a glassing spot. And then by the time it's breakfast time, you're back, and whatever. We're not going to get into specifics of scouting, but let's use elk for example. I mean, I know a lot of guys that go scouting and they're looking for the elk. I always tell people my advice is don't look for the elk. Where you see the elk in June, July, August is not where they're going to be in September. In most cases, don't look for the elk. Look for the signs of the elk during that time frame. Look for rutting activity. Look for rubs, giant amounts and lines of rubs. Look for walls that are old and dried up that do have water or that haven't been used yet. I look for that kind of sign on scouting trips far more than I'm actually trying to put eyes on an elk. And if I'm trying to put eyes on an elk, I'm trying to look for the cows more than the bulls.
Always.
If the cows, if there's a lot of feed and the feed stays consistent,
They'll stay
they
there.
won't move around a whole lot,
Especially
barring
on
hunting
the south
pressure.
slopes.
Barring hunting pressure, in my opinion. But those bulls, man, it amazes me how far they move from summer to fall to winter to whatever. And so I always get excited when I see bulls, but in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, dang it, I'm almost a little upset when I find bulls in my scouting areas.
Because you are extremely reluctant that they're not.
I think they're going to move.
They're going to move.
And I went into a spot one time in Wyoming and packed in scouting 19 6-point bulls in the same meadow in one night. I fought the mosquitoes. It was in August. Now, we did go back to similar, and we had good luck there, but I was just almost depressed. There wasn't a single cow in the field.
Wow.
Everyone was bulls. It was awesome to see them,
Yeah,
but in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh. So, you got to take that with a grain of salt. But so when I scout, I look for a few different things other than just elk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my favorite strategy now is when I was solo, I kind of go in, go out, go into the next area, go in, go out. And now that I'm married and my wife has to stay home with Wade, when she goes, I'm home, and when I go, she's home. But when I'm go hunting solo or on a scouting trip, she'll drop me off at one spot, and I'll give her 3 options of where I might come out, which would be totally different from where I went in. That is my favorite style of hunting. And scouting, it's a progressive style, and so typically I'll never spend 2 nights in the same area.
Well, you're not covering the same trails either. Same path.
And so...
Same country. You're looking at the same country if you're going in and out.
Exactly. And I'm trying to use my time the wisest. And I don't know if it's been a really, really, really fun strategy of scouting and hunting because I've seen more country. And you guys are going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but almost never do I go back to the same place twice. And it's not that advantageous for being successful, but I just want to see country.
That's me
too. I feel like over time I've actually honed my scouting skills, both e-scouting and boots on the ground. But I've just enjoyed the journey. I've seen so many wild places, and people are like, have you been here? It's like, yeah, I actually have.
Yeah.
And then they ask me, have you been here? It's like, well, truth be told, I was there last summer. Yeah. And they're like, how have you been everywhere? It's like, well, I just want to go everywhere, and I want to see these places. And I think back in my mind, well, someday after these progressive scouting and hunting trips where I take my llamas, they have all of our water and food for the 5 days we're going to be out, and we just go and we see all these places we want to see. And after hunting them and scouting them, maybe in 10 years I'll come back.
Well, you're making, you've got these mental notes of all these spots.
All these spots.
And when I teach my digital scouting stuff, the ultimate end product in my digital scouting series is developing your hunt plan. And when I talk about a hunting plan, I have options A through E. And I'm not talking A, B, and C. I just feel like if you're going to invest, you're going to go in, you got to have 4, 5, 6 options. When you leave the door.
Things change so fast.
Oh man, people, fires,
pressure,
road closures.
Culvert got me out this year.
Whatever, washouts.
Washouts.
And it's a bummer when your A spot doesn't work out. But if you have confidence in your B, C, and D, and whatever, all the way down the list, you've got so much better chance for success. So developing that hunt plan goes along with this as well. And so if you do that strategy that I like to pass along, it allows you to hunt new spots more effectively. You're not, even in a new spot, you're not banking on your A only. Mm-hmm. You've got a B, C, and D if you follow that strategy. And so I think it gives me a lot of peace of mind when I go in that I've got plenty of options in this area based on the stats and the harvest and what you've heard before and your digital scouting. I know there's elk in this area. I know they're here, and one of these 5 options is going to turn up elk.
Yeah.
And in order to hit all 5 of those, that's where the llamas come in. Because with the backpack, it's going to be hard to hit all those areas.
Even if you do have all the gear and equipment, and getting the water right, you might be so exhausted.
That's right.
Because you never know what challenges you're going to have to face. And then if you're exhausted, or even if you're not, let's say you got a 5-day hunt, and you get to day 4, 4.5. Are you going to be able to harvest something and get it out on that same trip?
It's not even possible.
You can't do it. So you got 5 days to hunt? Are you really hunting 5 days?
No, you're not. Nobody. And that was a reality for me. I used to say that when I come from the East. The last day, we very rarely would even take an opportunity because in our heads, we're running the timeline of like, we got to be back at work on Monday. It's Sunday. We got an 8-hour, 9-hour drive. I mean, there's no way we can make 2 trips. And it just never worked out.
You just couldn't do it.
And so virtually, you're just losing a day of hunting. And if you go in, not that you won't ever have to take 2 trips with llamas, depends on how many you rent. And that's one of the things we work out with you when you rent, is evaluating your schedule, how many guys or how many people in your party, and based on some success options, like if you're kill 1, 2, 3, making sure you're prepared for. And you know ahead of time that with our setup, with this number of llamas and with this amount of gear, we can bring 1, 2, or 3 out, whatever the setup is. And that's part of what I try to do with my clients, is evaluating how far their needs are. That law, that's based on how far you're going in.
What time of year it is?
When you got to get out.
If you're elk or deer hunting.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. The species, exactly.
Weather that might be moving in, forecast, huge deal. So I think that's a really big component, and it kind of brings me back to my statement, and I've never really explained this well, as much as I try, but it comes back to the component of, if you have llamas, you actually become a better hunter because you're hunting more, and so your success goes up. And the reason is just as simple as saving you water, taking in better food, so you're better qualified nutritionally to burn proper calories to be able to hunt effectively day in and day out. And you can hunt to the last moment of the last day, and potentially, if you're set up properly, 3 llamas for an elk. You can get your camp and your gear out. You shoot the animal 10 minutes before shooting light goes out. You go and process it. He's coming out the last day, the last minute, and it's all, so it just gives you the opportunity to hunt longer, to hunt more effectively.
Well, just the mental,
mental
well-being.
That's a good point.
It's going to make you a better hunter because you just don't have to worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it.
You're not stressing like, I got 3 hours. If I don't kill this elk on the morning hunt,
then I got to.
That's it. I got this. This is my last morning. I can't hunt the evening because of this, and it just takes all that out. It takes that pressure out, and just makes you more flexible. And I mean, I know this is a sales pitch, but man, you just can't. We're excited about llamas.
We're excited about llamas.
I mean, what else can you say? So,
one of the things that you just mentioned that brought up an idea. How many times now that you've had llamas, Mark, that you don't have to worry about a lot of these nuances of, okay, it's the last morning. This is my last morning, which means it's the last day of my hunt. You went from that moment in your life, hunting from the east, to now I have llamas, to all of a sudden pushing the envelope a little bit. It's like, I can go there. I can do that. Oh, he's over there. No problem. Oh, we need to move camp. We can do that. How many times has that happened?
Oh, man. Like, there's an example in Colorado where we were hunting. We were hunting these elk that were across the Royal Gorge virtually. This thing was one of the worst canyons I've ever crossed.
Really?
With llamas. I've never crossed anything like it. It was vertical. Wow. The llamas, I've never seen llamas crawl out on their knees, and they were on their knees.
That is intense.
It was intense. But we knew that we could not shoot an elk over there and go over there and butcher this elk and then come back and get the llamas and physically not be exhausted, even though we had llamas. So we're able to take the llamas we knew the elk were there. We're able to take the llamas to our scouting spot, to our glassing spot. We shoot the elk with the llamas laying right there.
Really?
We go across and get the elk and come back. One trip, done.
Wow.
It was amazing. Even though it was hard, it was amazing. And even with that, we shot this elk, across this canyon. It took us 9 hours.
Wow.
That's how bad it was. And I'm convinced, and that was that's an extreme example, of course, but I'm convinced there's no pack animal, none, that could have done that in and out. I don't think a horse could have done that steep.
And it was all cross country off trail, right?
It was all no trail, cross country, and
the distance. What kind of distance?
The distance was about a half mile down and about a half mile up.
Wow.
That's
9 hours. That's intense.
But it was about 500 yards across, as the crow flies. That's how it was. Just super steep.
And steep.
Super steep. Water crossing at the bottom. Thick olive, whatever they call that stuff. That tangled, messy, nasty stuff.
I can see it's a good memory.
And it looked all fun and games when we were shooting at it from the other side. Until we got into the canyon. And but I'm convinced that on any other scenario, and we were 9 miles in. We were packed in 9 miles. So the thought of having to do that kind of a pack out to get it to camp, and then once we get to camp, facing 9 miles to get out with a backpack, I'm not sure that...
That would have been a 3 or 4 day deal.
Here's my personal belief. I do not like packing animals to the truck and going back in for a second trip. I just don't like it. It's mentally depressing. It's tough physically. It's emotionally draining. I'm 53 years old now, and not that I can't get in shape to do it, because I can, but it takes away my hunt time.
Yeah.
All the things we just talked about. But I like coming out one trip. So my advice, anybody renting llamas, rent enough so you can make one trip.
Yeah.
In your life, you just love it. It's just so nice.
The first elk I ever shot, it was a monster pack out on my back, and I've done a lot on my back since then. And believe it or not, people think, you got all these llamas, you got hundreds of llamas. Why do you have this monster pack? I got a 7,000 cubic inch pack. It's like, believe it or not, I always, I'm packing something out on my back always. And the reason is because we ran out of our llamas, and I've got 2, and I'd like to have 4. And so, I still pack a ton of meat and camp gear on my back every fall, and I don't mind it. But that third trip, you said the second one, and I can mentally, currently at 31 years old, get past that second one. But that third one, I am down for the count.
By the time you're 50, the second one's not going to be an option. No, it's not going to be an option. So
that's so funny.
My problem now is, I know we need to wrap up, and my problem now is I'm taking too much crap. I've got enough llamas now. I'm going on solo trips with 6 llamas. 5 is, I went on a solo trip this year with the 4 you had, and my 8 llamas, 1 guy. They're so easy to handle, 8 llamas, and they walked around with empty panniers, but
why not?
I could have packed out 4 elk if I had tags. But I'm at a point I gotta take a heart. Ryan and I joked about that trip. We were on that Colorado trip together, 2 guys, 9 llamas. And we just had ridiculous amounts of stuff. I took clothes that I wouldn't have worn if we'd have been there for 2 months. I had 3 pairs of boots packed. I had lounge shoes. I had camp lounge shoes. I had Crocs. I had waders. And 3 pairs of leather hiking. 3 pairs of boots.
Yeah, you guys got
I've gotten a little spoiled.
I'm gonna have to call Ryan and harass him.
I've gotten spoiled, and now we're buying more llamas, so now it could get worse.
Gonna get worse. Raising llamas and packing them is a pretty amazing experience, and we're obviously, of course, this is how we make our money. We're hoping to, increase our business and grow it, and start and work with more people, and we really hope that people get opportunity to recognize the abilities of llamas and use them if it fits their needs. And more than anything, seeing the llamas work on public land for people that are chasing public land elk, public land deer, bear, antelope, it's really remarkable that we all get a share in this amazing adventure, And some people go to Hawaii with their family every year. Some people fish, camp, and hunt. And we're those people. And having these llamas has helped other people just really have that awesome opportunity to get in the backcountry for a retreat. And we have these wild places to be able to use them, and so we're hoping that more people get to use our llamas, both in Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, to be able to take their family and friends, go on these camping, fishing, hunting adventures, and to find the happiness and joy that we found in it, and that you can find ways to be passionate about the backcountry and become, good advocates of public land. So llamas are amazing animals. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode.
I think we're going to, in closing, and for my closing thoughts, is I think we're going to have to do another video on hunting strategies with llamas.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that coming up, because I just feel like there's a lot of stuff. We covered rentals, we covered some very basics, but I think we both have so many times we've used them in different practices just to give people
help people.
Giving people some
ideas,
some foods for thought. And I think we'll probably try to do that. I think it'd be a good for them.
Yeah. Well, if you guys like the show, the video cast that we did today, please comment and share it to people interested in using pack llamas for hunting and scouting. And thank you for being with us, Mark.
Pleasure. It's been a great trip. I like my wife said, she goes, I don't think you've ever been to Idaho Falls and not come back with some llamas.
When you come back,
I want to keep that trend going. I'm taking two llamas home today. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for bringing Amy and the kids down. And believe it or not, guys, we're going to go eat some steak. So thanks for tuning in.
Steak, that's right. Not elk tonight.
Llama Life. Thanks for subscribing, following. Check out the channel. We got a bunch more videos below. And Mark has some great videos that we'll link in the video description about digital e-scouting. Check out Tree Line Pursuits.
And I've got more to come.
More to come. I think he's on video 2 of 5, so check it out. Thanks again, Tyler, also Volkswagen, for all the hard work you do for us. We really appreciate it. Keep loving the backcountry. Rent llamas if it fits your hunting strategy.